Have you ever wondered why it's so hard to stay disciplined, even when you know what you should be doing? It's like your brain is fighting against you, pushing you toward comfort, distraction, and instant pleasure. But here's the twist. Your brain isn't the enemy. In fact, you can trick it into loving discipline, not just tolerating it, but actually craving it. Today, I'll show you how to rewire your mind so that discipline feels as rewarding as your favorite guilty pleasure.
Let's start with something most people never realize. Your brain doesn't actually want you to be successful, it wants you to be safe. From an evolutionary point of view, your brain's #1 job isn't achievement, it's survival. Every function, every thought, every habit it builds is designed to protect you from danger, conserve energy, and keep you alive long enough to pass on your genes. That's it. Success, growth, ambition, those are modern inventions. Your brain hasn't caught up. Thousands of years ago, our ancestors didn't have to worry about productivity or personal growth. They worried about finding food, staying warm, and not being eaten. So our brains evolved to avoid pain and conserve energy, because wasting energy or taking unnecessary risks could mean death. Now, fast forward to today. You live in a world where physical danger is almost non-existent, but your brain still runs the same ancient software. It still thinks discomfort means danger. So when you decide to wake up early, study, go to the gym, or start a difficult project, your brain doesn't see it as good for the future. It sees it as a threat to comfort and stability. That's why discipline feels so hard. It's not that you're lazy, it's that your brain is doing its job. When you try to build discipline, you're actually asking your brain to go against millions of years of programming. Think about that for a second. You're telling it, hey, I'm going to choose effort over comfort. I'm going to embrace uncertainty. I'm going to delay gratification. And your brain goes, wait, what? Why would we do that? There's Netflix, there's snacks, there's social media. Why would we suffer when we can have pleasure now? This isn't a lack of willpower, it's biology. Every time you try to do something uncomfortable, your brain releases stress hormones like cortisol, signaling that something's wrong. It also withholds dopamine, the chemical of motivation and reward, because from its perspective, you're walking away from pleasure. That's why procrastination feels so comforting. It's not a character flaw. It's your brain giving you a hit of dopamine for avoiding discomfort. It rewards you for staying safe. Ironically, it's trying to protect you, even when that protection keeps you stuck. Think about the last time you tried to start a new habit, maybe working out, journaling, or building a business. The first few days felt exciting, but then resistance kicked in. Suddenly, everything else felt more important. Checking your phone, cleaning the kitchen, even reorganizing your desk. That's not coincidence. That's your brain defending its comfort zone. The comfort zone isn't a place, it's a psychological survival mechanism. It's your brain's way of saying, we've survived doing this much, let's not risk changing it. And discipline is the act of breaking out of that zone, which to your brain feels like danger. Let's break down what's really happening on a neurological level. Inside your brain, there's a small almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. It's responsible for detecting threats and triggering fear or resistance. Every time you try to do something unfamiliar or challenging, the amygdala lights up like a warning siren. Meanwhile, another part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, knows the truth. It's logical, forward-thinking, and understands that waking up early, exercising, or studying leads to long-term success. But the amygdala doesn't care about the long term. It only cares about right now. So the two start fighting. The amygdala screams, "Stop! This feels unsafe!" And the prefrontal cortex whispers, "We need this, it's good for us." And whoever wins that battle determines your behavior. If emotion wins, you stay stuck. If reason wins, even just for a few seconds, you build momentum. That's what discipline is. Training your brain to let the prefrontal cortex lead instead of the amygdala. But here's the thing, your brain isn't trying to sabotage you on purpose. It's not your enemy. It's more like an overprotective parent, constantly pulling you back whenever it senses discomfort. Imagine your brain saying, "You're tired, you've done enough, you don't need to push yourself, let's relax." That voice sounds comforting, it feels reasonable, but it's a trap because it keeps you stuck in the same loop, avoiding pain, seeking comfort, and wondering why you can't move forward. You don't have a discipline problem, you have a neurochemical bias towards safety. And once you understand that, everything changes because you realize you're not fighting laziness, you're rewiring instinct. Let's look at dopamine, the molecule that drives most of our behavior. Dopamine doesn't just make you feel good, it motivates you to act. When you scroll social media or eat junk food, your brain gets a huge instant dopamine hit. That's why it's addictive. Your brain learns, that was easy, that felt good, let's do it again. But when you do something that pays off in the long term, like studying or saving money, the reward isn't immediate. The dopamine comes much later, if at all, so your brain doesn't make the same strong connection. It doesn't crave discipline because it hasn't been trained to associate discipline with reward. That's the real reason people struggle to stay consistent. They think they lack motivation, but in reality, their dopamine system is miswired. It's hooked on instant gratification instead of delayed satisfaction. This is why people chase comfort even when it destroys them. It's not logical, it's chemical. And it's also why you can't simply force discipline through willpower. Willpower is like a muscle, it gets tired. If you rely on it alone, it burns out fast. That's why motivation fades after a few days. You start strong, but then the brain says, "This is hard, this isn't fun, let's stop." You don't fail because you're weak. You fail because your brain hasn't learned that effort can feel good. Here's the truth. Discipline isn't natural, it's trained. And it's trained through repetition, consistency, and most importantly, rewards. If you learn how to give your brain a small sense of pleasure each time you stay disciplined, it will start craving discipline instead of resisting it. That's the trick, and we'll get to that in the next chapter. But before we move on, let this sink in. You have spent your entire life believing that the voice inside your head, the one that says, "Not today, I'll do it later, I'm too tired," is you. It's not. It's your survival brain doing what it was programmed to do thousands of years ago. Once you realize that, you can finally separate yourself from your instincts. You can observe the resistance without obeying it. You can feel the discomfort and still move forward. That's where real discipline begins, not in punishment or self-control, but in understanding. When you understand your brain, you stop fighting it and start training it. And when you train it, something magical happens. Discipline stops feeling like pain, it starts feeling like power.
Now that you understand why your brain naturally resists discipline, it's time to learn the secret that changes everything. The truth is, you can't force yourself into discipline through guilt or sheer willpower. You can't endlessly fight your brain's desire for comfort. But what you can do is something much smarter. You can trick your brain into loving discipline. You can rewire its reward system so that the same neurocircuits that light up for instant pleasures like scrolling or snacking begin to light up for progress, effort, and consistency. The goal isn't to kill pleasure,
It's to move it, to shift the source of your dopamine from distraction to discipline. The brain doesn't actually crave the reward itself. It craves the anticipation of the reward. When you open your favorite app, your brain fires a shot of dopamine before you even see what's new. It's not the video, the like, or the message that hooks you. It's the expectation that something good is coming. That means you don't need to eliminate dopamine to become disciplined. You just need to attach it to the right things. You need to train your brain to expect pleasure from the process of growth, not the escape from it. To do that, you must first shrink the pain barrier that surrounds discipline. Every time you think about doing something difficult, your brain exaggerates how unpleasant it will feel. It predicts pain before it even begins. That's why the hardest part of any task is always starting. The trick is to make the beginning so small that your brain doesn't have a chance to resist. If you tell yourself you're going to work out for an hour, the brain rebels. But if you say, "I'll just put on my shoes," it relaxes. Once you start, resistance melts away. Motion rewires emotion. Each small action releases a subtle wave of dopamine, rewarding you for moving forward instead of running away. But the real transformation happens when you stop rewarding only the results and start rewarding the effort itself. Most people celebrate success only when they reach a milestone, the finished project, the lost weight, the new job. But discipline lives in the moments in between, in the daily grind no one sees. If you delay all your rewards until the end, your brain learns that discipline equals pain followed by faraway pleasure. No wonder it resists. You must close that gap. Every time you follow through, no matter how small the step, acknowledge it, smile, breathe. Tell yourself, "I did it." Give your brain a little hit of joy for the act of discipline itself. The more often you do that, the more your brain associates effort with reward. Soon, it starts to crave that feeling of pride and progress. Effort itself becomes satisfying. You begin to enjoy the climb, not just the view from the top. Another powerful way to reshape your brain's relationship with discipline is through association. The brain learns by linking experiences together. If you constantly pair your disciplined actions with feelings of boredom or stress, it will always resist. But if you intentionally pair them with things you enjoy, music, environment, rituals, the association changes. Play your favorite playlist only when you exercise. Brew your favorite coffee only when you study or write. Light a candle when you sit down to work. Over time, these sensory cues tell your brain, this is the good part. Discipline becomes linked to pleasure, not punishment. It's the same psychological principle used in marketing, addiction, and habit formation. Only now, you're using it to rewire your own behavior. And because the brain loves visible progress, make your growth something you can see. Humans are visual creatures. We thrive on evidence of movement. Create a simple way to track your consistency. A journal, a wall calendar, an app, anything that lets you see your progress. Each mark, each check, each line of continuity gives you a tiny burst of satisfaction. It's proof that you're evolving. And once that streak grows, your brain begins to protect it. You don't want to break the chain. The sight of progress becomes addictive. What was once a struggle now feels rewarding simply because it reflects who you are becoming. That identity shift is the real magic, because discipline isn't just what you do, it's who you become. When you show up consistently, even in small ways, you are casting votes for a new identity. The identity of a disciplined, focused, resilient person. The more votes you cast, the stronger that identity becomes, until it's no longer something you're trying to do, it's just who you are. Your brain, which craves consistency between thoughts and actions, will then begin to align its behavior to match your self-image. Once you believe you are disciplined, your brain will act accordingly. That's how you shift from "I have to" "I am." The next part of this mental reprogramming is to make discomfort familiar. Discomfort is only painful because it's unknown. The first time you face it, your brain reacts like it's danger. But if you expose yourself to it repeatedly, calmly, without judgment, the alarm quiets. This process, called habituation, transforms fear into neutrality. The more you sit with discomfort, the more it becomes a normal part of life. Just another feeling, not a signal to stop. So start small. Take a cold shower for 30 seconds. Wake up 10 minutes earlier. Do one extra rep when you want to quit. Each time you lean into discomfort and survive, your brain updates its map of the world. It learns that difficulty doesn't mean danger, it means growth. Visualization also plays a powerful role in rewiring your reward system. Most people imagine the pain of effort before they begin. The tiredness, the resistance, the struggle. That's a mistake. You must flip the script. Before you act, imagine the pleasure on the other side. Visualize the calm satisfaction after finishing your work, the pride after the workout, the relief after keeping your promise to yourself. Feel that emotion as vividly as you can. Your brain can't tell the difference between imagination and reality. When you picture the reward, dopamine releases in advance. You are literally programming your brain to look forward to discipline instead of fearing it. Finally, give your brain feedback that discipline pays off. Track not just what you did, but how it made you feel. Did you sleep better after staying consistent? Did your stress drop when you kept your schedule? Did your self-respect rise after following through? Write it down. Review it. The more your brain sees evidence that discipline equals happiness, the more it will crave the behaviors that lead there. Over time, the equation in your head changes from discipline equals pain to discipline equals pleasure. The neural pathways that once rewarded procrastination begin to reward progress. This is the turning point, when discipline stops feeling like sacrifice and starts feeling like peace. You stop seeing it as giving something up and start seeing it as gaining control. You begin to notice that procrastination doesn't relax you, it drains you. You see that comfort isn't comfort at all if it leaves you anxious and restless afterward. True comfort comes from knowing you're in control of yourself, from trusting your own consistency, from respecting the person you're becoming. That's the real pleasure, not the short-lived hit of dopamine from distraction, but the deep, lasting satisfaction of alignment. And the beautiful paradox is this: the more disciplined you become, the freer you feel. You no longer live at the mercy of moods or impulses. You act with purpose, not reaction. Discipline becomes your default state, not a punishment, but a path. The path to clarity, the path to confidence, the path to peace. That's the trick. You don't fight your brain. You teach it that discipline is pleasure. And once it believes that, the game changes forever.
By now, you've learned how to trick your brain into enjoying discipline. You've seen how it can shift from craving comfort to craving progress. But there's still one more level, the level where discipline stops being something you do and becomes something you are. This is where transformation becomes permanent. This is where habits evolve into identity. You see, most people think discipline is about forcing action. They treat it like a switch, on or off, strong or weak. But true discipline isn't mechanical, it's psychological. It's rooted in who you believe yourself to be. The most disciplined people in the world don't wake up every day and argue with themselves about whether to act. They simply act because their behavior matches their identity. It's not, I should go to the gym, it's, I'm an athlete. It's not, I have to study, it's, I'm a learner. It's not, I need to work hard, it's, I'm the kind of person who finishes what I start. Once discipline becomes part of your self-concept, resistance fades. Your brain stops fighting because it no longer sees discipline as a foreign behavior. It recognizes it as home. Identity is the anchor that holds your habits in place. Think about this. When someone quits smoking, it's one thing to say, I'm trying to quit, and another to say, I don't smoke. The first phrase describes effort. The second describes identity. The difference is enormous. When you say, I don't smoke, your brain begins to reject the idea of smoking as something that doesn't fit your self-image. It becomes inconsistent with who you are, and the human mind hates inconsistency. We naturally seek alignment between our identity and our actions. So the more you reinforce the identity of a disciplined person, the more your brain will do everything in its power to keep your behavior aligned with it. That means every disciplined choice you make isn't just an action, it's a vote for your future self. Each repetition strengthens the signal, building the story your subconscious believes. You're literally sculpting a new self-concept one decision at a time, and eventually the story becomes truth. But here's the challenge. Identity change doesn't happen overnight. It's not a sudden leap, it's a slow rewriting of internal language. You must begin speaking to yourself differently, gently, consistently, deliberately. Instead of saying, "I wish I were more focused," say, "I'm becoming more focused every day." Instead of, "I'm bad at consistency," say, "I'm learning to show up." Your subconscious listens to every word you say, and it builds evidence to match your narrative. Speak as if you are already the person you're becoming, and your brain will begin to make it real. To lock in your new identity, you must surround it with proof. Evidence is the glue that keeps self-image intact. Every time you follow through on a promise to yourself, you strengthen the bridge between intention and belief. That's why small wins matter so much. You might think that one workout, one study session, or one day of good habits doesn't mean much, but to your brain, it's confirmation this is who I am now. The brain doesn't care how big the victory is, it only tracks patterns. So build those patterns deliberately. Create rituals that reinforce the identity you want to embody. Rituals are more powerful than motivation because they bypass decision fatigue. When you have rituals, you don't negotiate with yourself, you simply execute. Wake up and stretch. Open your notebook at the same time every day. Review your goals before bed. These micro habits serve as identity anchors, keeping you aligned with your disciplined self even on low motivation days. And remember, emotion follows identity. When your actions reflect who you believe you are, you feel calm, grounded, proud. When your actions contradict that belief, you feel guilt, shame, or anxiety. That's why it's so painful to break your own promises. It's not about the missed task, it's about the fracture in your self-trust. Rebuilding discipline is really about rebuilding trust with yourself. To make this identity stick, you also need to reshape your environment. The spaces you inhabit, the people around you, even the smallest cues in your daily life, they all act as mirrors reflecting back who you are. If your environment constantly triggers distraction and chaos, your disciplined identity struggles to survive. But if your surroundings reinforce order, focus, and growth, your brain automatically aligns with that rhythm. Create an environment that supports the person you're becoming. Clean your workspace. Organize your digital space. Surround yourself with people who value progress, not excuses. Your environment should whisper reminders of your new identity every day, not through words, but through atmosphere. Make your world a reflection of discipline, and your behavior will naturally follow. But identity doesn't just need structure, it needs purpose. Without meaning, discipline becomes mechanical, and mechanical effort eventually collapses. You need to know why you're building this identity. Ask yourself, who am I doing this for? What does this disciplined version of me make possible? Maybe it's freedom, maybe it's peace, maybe it's the ability to protect and provide for the people you love. Whatever it is, make it emotional. Emotion cements identity. The stronger the emotional connection, the harder it is to break. Your purpose gives discipline a heartbeat. It turns every small act into something sacred. When you remind yourself that your effort has meaning, the resistance fades. You stop seeing discipline as a duty and start seeing it as devotion. Devotion to your potential, your dreams, your future. There will still be days when your old identity tries to pull you back. That voice will whisper, "Skip it today, you deserve a break, you've done enough." But that voice doesn't represent your truth anymore. It's the echo of your old self, the one that valued comfort over growth. Don't fight that voice, recognize it, smile at it, then act anyway. Every time you do, you weaken its power. The new you gets louder, stronger, clearer. That's how transformation really works. Not through a single moment of breakthrough, but through thousands of quiet repetitions. The new identity doesn't appear with fireworks, it grows quietly in the background. one decision at a time. And eventually, the story becomes truth. The final step is to protect that identity. Once you built it, you must guard it fiercely. Your habits are fragile when they're new. They're like young roots, easily pulled out by distraction or doubt. So stay consistent even when motivation fades. Stay mindful, even when life gets chaotic. Treat your discipline as something sacred because it is. It's the foundation upon which everything else stands. Your goals, your peace, your confidence. And when you slip, don't shame yourself. A disciplined identity isn't about perfection. It's about resilience. Every time you stumble and rise again, you prove your strength. You're reinforcing the belief that no matter what happens, you return to your path. That's what truly disciplined people do. They don't avoid failure, they recover from it faster. In time, you'll notice a shift. The things that once felt forced will feel effortless. You'll stop chasing motivation and start relying on momentum. You'll feel proud not just of what you achieve, but of who you've become. You will look back and realize that the old version of you, the one that resisted, procrastinated, avoided, has quietly faded away. Discipline will no longer be a word that feels heavy or painful. It will feel like home. It will be your natural state, a reflection of strength, stability, and freedom. Because real freedom doesn't come from doing whatever you want. It comes from becoming the kind of person who does what needs to be done, even when it's hard. So lock it in, speak it, live it, breathe it. You are no longer someone trying to be disciplined. You are discipline. And that changes everything.